And a pleasant good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you Devils fans. And what is going on? It is, as always, your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano. And welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as Sports Wire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about your New Jersey Devils. And as always, Devils fans, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check these episodes out. As I say all the time, you guys know greatly appreciate all of your guys' continued support, not just of listening to the podcast, but also interacting, following, liking everything that I do over on social media as well. And again, thank you guys so very much. And I know it's a tough time of the off season for not just the Devils, but for everybody, where we really get into the slower part of the year. We are towards we're getting towards the end of July, and we will enter into our final full month of no hockey with August coming up. But over the next couple of weeks, the episodes that I'm going to be doing are actually season recaps of specific players. So that's going to be the next, or really the final 6, 7 episodes of season 6 of the Devil State of Mind podcast. And then we will jump in to the 2025-26 season. Now, if there is breaking news, you already know I'm going to jump on here as quickly as I can and give you guys the immediate reaction to whatever happens. We're still hearing a lot of rumors about guys like Dougie Hamilton and Andre Palat to a lesser extent, and Dawson Mercer, and even a little bit of Nico Dawes over the last couple of days. But if anything happens, you know that I will be there on social media, but I will also be here on the podcast to talk with you guys about what has happened. But as of right now, at the time of this recording, nothing major has happened. A lot of the moves have already been done, and this was several weeks ago. But regardless, we are going to begin our season recap of specific players. And if you guys can check it out here on YouTube, I'm rocking this really cool shirt that says the franchise. And that's because we are going to kick things off with talking about superstar Jack Hughes. I think that this is kind of fitting in terms of who I wanted to start with, because the way that I want to do this is starting off by looking at their overall season, focusing on the good, but certainly also focusing on the bad, and then just kind of giving you an overall feeling and takes of what I have to say about the player. And also, as I've started to do over on social media, if you haven't already, check it out. As you can see, Devil State of Mind on both Facebook and Instagram, but Devil State on Twitter. I have started to give my predictions for overall goals, assists, and points. And I thought that would be kind of fun. And this is also based off of the hope, knock on wood, especially for this guy, Jack Hughes, right here, if they can stay healthy and play potentially all 82 games. Now, I recognize that they may not play all 82 unless you're Dawson Mercer and you just keep playing every game. And especially with Jack Hughes, it's going to be tough. But nonetheless, I still want to give my predictions. And of course, I want to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section here on YouTube, but also over on social media as well. And again, thank you to everybody who's chiming in. Really do appreciate it. So let's get into Jack Hughes, shall we? Let's just get right into it. So we'll start with kind of quickly giving you guys a brief description of his stats. 62 games played this past year, 27 goals on the campaign, adding also 43 assists for a grand total of 70 points. Also finished the year with a impressive plus minus of plus 12. So overall, even in the 62 games, he still was without question one of, if not our best player on the ice. And as we've talked about numerous times here on the podcast, that if he's on a roll, then the rest of the team will follow suit. And that's the way I think you got to look at it with Jack Hughes. And we don't always love that the team, for the most part, has been built around Jack Hughes. And if he's not playing, then the rest of the team struggles. There are other guys that have stepped up before, but certainly without question, when number 86 is not on the ice for the Devils, it becomes much more of a challenge for this team in many games. And so, again, you just hope that Jack Hughes can stay healthy. But let's focus on the good first, right? The first thing to talk about is he finished the year despite missing 20 games this season in the regular season. He finished second on the team in points and in goals. So even though he didn't play a full season, for him to still do that is quite impressive, and again shows the talent that Jack Hughes brings. The next really good thing, and for a lot of players this was good, was that Jack Hughes got to be a part of the Four Nations face-off. He was part of Team USA as they went on to get the silver, well, not even silver medal. They finished in second place in the Four Nations face-off, losing in the gold medal game to Canada. But Jack Hughes, playing on that top line, playing with guys like Austin Matthews and Jay Gensel, I think it showed the level of confidence and belief that the United States hockey program has in Jack Hughes. And that's going to be a factor going in to the 2026 Milano Winter Olympic Games coming up. And I'm very confident and feeling 100% certain that Jack Hughes will represent the United States at the Olympics, as well will a lot of Devils players. And we'll talk about that at a later time. But yeah, this was a big accomplishment for Jack Hughes, his first real opportunity to play with a majority of superstars around the league, playing in an international competition. He's played in some international competitions when he was much younger, but this is a lot different situation, playing against, in many cases, the best of the best. And I know that some people were critical of Jack Hughes and that maybe he didn't put up as many points as people would have liked, but I think overall he actually played fairly well and showed that he can be a major impact player for the United States, and also obviously continuing to be an impact player for the New Jersey Devils without question. And the other thing that I wanted to share was what I would consider to be my favorite moment of Jack Hughes this season, and it has to be the Instagram hockey game. And again, I don't have to break it down. You guys already know what I'm talking about. It's Jack Hughes trying to dangle past Shesterkin for a goal. Didn't score there, but still an impressive move nonetheless. Great save by Shesterkin. Got to give him credit there. But obviously, the big news was Steve Alliquette, former New York Ranger goaltender and current analyst on MSG for the Rangers, for the 1 millionth time, because he's done this before. This is not the first time he's criticized Jack Hughes. Called that Instagram hockey and trying to quote unquote embarrass Igor Shesterkin. And Jack Hughes had the iconic and perfect response asking, "What does that even mean?" And nobody could figure out what exactly that meant. I think the best way you could describe it is the fact that because Jack Hughes is a flashy player and obviously he has a big following on social media and we're into that generation now. I guess that is the way that Steve Alquette was trying to, describe his point. But again, it was just strange. It was just strange. I actually have, for my friend Ashley, who's been on the podcast before, I have a shirt that she made of Jack Hughes trying to make that move, and on the bottom it says, "What does that even mean?" And it's just Instagram hockey. It's great. It's again an iconic moment in a list of iconic moments that Jack Hughes has had in his career up until this point. But that was without question, even though he didn't score or anything like that. That's without question my favorite overall moment of Jack Hughes this season. So that's all the good things that we can talk about with Jack. Now we got to get to the bad, because it was bad, as once again Jack Hughes sustained an injury. He injured his shoulder in a loss to the Vegas Golden Knights near the trade deadline and was deemed out for the rest of the year. Did not come back at all. Missed the rest of the regular season. Didn't play in any of the 5 games in the postseason. And so another year where Jack Hughes' season is cut short due to injuries. And this is the second time that he's injured his shoulder. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the same shoulder that he injured the first time the year before. So, yeah, I mean, to put it bluntly, this has become quite frustrating. I've tried my best to defend Jack Hughes in a lot of ways, saying that, He's doing what he can to try to avoid getting hurt, and he's just had a ton of bad luck. But here is where I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on the whole thing and why I feel that Jack Hughes' injury problems is more really on him and what he's doing or what he's not doing. And let me explain. I don't believe that Jack Hughes is a quote unquote injury prone player. Matter of fact, I don't really think that a lot of players are injury prone. I think a lot of the time, especially with a player like Jack Hughes, it's a lot more about his positioning on the ice. And what do I mean by that? I don't think that Jack Hughes is always fully aware of where he is on the ice and the situation that he can put himself into. And you look at a lot of those injuries that he's had, some of them, in a way, you could have said could potentially have been avoided if he was more aware of, if he was more aware of where he is on the ice. So I'll give a couple of examples. Like obviously I can't show any video on here for, copyright reasons, but I want to give you a couple of examples. The first one I'll give is a couple of years ago when Jack Hughes got hurt against the Seattle Kraken and he was slammed up against the boards. Obviously, came up limping in his arm and ended up, leaving the game. He did end up coming back later in the season, but still getting hurt like that is incredibly frustrating. That to me is a good example because when you really look at the play, Jack Hughes could have stopped little bit sooner to avoid that kind of hit or to be more ready to brace for that hit. Instead, he left himself vulnerable with his numbers to, his back numbers to the player, and, he gets crunched. Another example that came actually this past season was when Jack Hughes got absolutely leveled by Max Pacioretty. You could see right then and there that Jack is not clearly aware of where he is, and not really keeping his eyes out for what he needs to do and how he can avoid getting around those situations. That's another example. And I know that some people are going to defend Jack in this situation, but I definitely believe that this most recent shoulder injury also could have been avoided. Yes, Jack Hughes lost his balance and slammed into the boards, and that's unfortunate. But I still feel that you should be somewhat aware of the situation of where you could potentially go, too fast towards the boards and lose your balance and collide, especially with Jack. We've seen him many times losing his balance because I think he has a little bit of trouble with balance. I think he has a little bit of a balance issue on the ice. And hopefully that's something that he's working on. And maybe, especially if it's something that he actually is aware of. But the whole point that I'm trying to make here with Jack Hughes is the simple fact that I feel that Jack can avoid some of these injuries, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, if he's more aware of where he is on the ice. I think that's a big thing that you have to look at with this. And so, a good example of a guy that has adapted his game to avoiding those type of injuries is Jesper Bratt. I mean, look at the amount of times that Jesper Bratt will come up the right wing, right? The right side, and he'll kind of slither his way through a defender, or he kind of positions himself in a way where he knows he's going to get hit, but he braces for that so that when he gets hit, it's not as big of an impact over if he was just basically, just leaving himself super vulnerable. And that to me is a big reason why Jesper Bratt has been able to stay on the ice a lot more and, be there because as the old saying goes, the best ability is availability. And for Jack Hughes, he's missed a ton of games over his career because of injuries. So the big thing that I would say to Jack simply is you have to be more aware of where you are on the ice. You have to understand that you are the best player on this team by far, without question. Talent wise, no debate whatsoever. A lot of teams are going to look to you and say, if we stop Jack Hughes or if he gets hurt, then we shut down this entire Devils team. And that's where a lot of these conversations come in about, oh, the Devils are soft. They're injury prone, this, that, and the other thing. It's because that the Devils are not putting themselves in the best position to avoid those kind of situations, and Jack Hughes in particular. That's the way that I look at it with Jack. And whether or not you agree or disagree with me, it's just this is just something that I have seen. I don't feel like it's been talked about enough. I think it's easy for people to just talk about Jack and say he's injury prone, he's a pretty boy, he's just he doesn't know, he's really not that good. No. A lot of that stuff is false in my opinion. It's about him being aware of where he is. If he can move forward in his career and be much more alert of his surroundings, he will avoid a lot more of those injuries. Again, the other thing though with injuries is that sometimes they happen and it's just unavoidable. But there are times that I've seen Jack get hurt or get banged up where I feel very confident that if he was more alert of that situation and in a better position, he wouldn't have gotten hurt or the impact would have been a lot less. So that's the way I look at it. Does Jack need to build up some muscle? Sure. Sure. But I think the other thing to think about is that the more muscle that Jack Hughes gains, the less speed he's going to have. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is that Jack Hughes may just be a guy that, because of the way he plays and his body type, it may just be a struggle for him to put on weight and keep it. And that's not a knock on Jack. That's just part of his body. That's just what it is. But again, if Jack Hughes can just, I know I keep saying it, but if he can just be more alert of where he is on the ice, I believe that he will avoid a lot more injuries moving forward. That's the way that I look at it. That's how I personally look at it. And if Jack Hughes can prepare himself mentally and also physically to an extent, to be aware of this and understand where he needs to be, I think he'll be fine. And he'll be able to stay in these games a lot longer. He'll play further into the season and he'll be able to make that impact that we want him and expect him to make on a night to night basis. So that's really what I wanted to break down, especially with the bad and talking about the injuries, because I just feel that perspective has not been brought up enough. And I wanted to bring it up because it's the thing that I think is the most important when looking at Jack. So that's just what I wanted to say. So let's kind of wrap this up here with my overall thoughts. So, without question, Jack Hughes is still the most talented player on the New Jersey Devils, and he's one of the most talented players in the league when he's on the ice. That's the big thing. When he is healthy, as this team has been constructed up until this point, the rest of the team follows. Because even though, yes, Nico Hischier is the captain, and we all love him, the true cog in the machine is Jack Hughes because of how uber talented he is. If he's healthy and he's playing at the top of his game, this Devils team will follow him and they will produce. And we have seen it before. We saw it last year. We've seen it the year before. Yet this, then we have seen it. It does. You look at the eye test and it's very obvious how this goes. Now, the one thing I will say is that I would like to see Jack Hughes take a little bit more of a leadership role. I think at this point, he's drafted all the way back in 2019. It's 2025. I think now is the time, as he's into his prime, where he needs to take on a little bit more of a leadership role. I'm not saying he has to, overtake Nico Hischier or anything like that, but I think that he needs to be more accountable. And I think that Sheldon Keefe was doing that before obviously Jack got hurt. And I think that's going to continue moving forward. But I think Jack needs to be a bit more vocal, which I don't believe that he's not vocal in the locker room, but I would like to see it more. And certainly, I think playing by example, being that aggressive player, being a guy that's going to try to do whatever he can to put that puck in the back of the net, and really, really trying to get guys and putting them in the right position. I think Jack Hughes is very capable of all of that. That's the way that I look at it one heartedly. So that's like my overall thoughts. Now, the last thing I'll do really quickly is give you my prediction for just stat prediction for Jack Hughes for 25-26. Now, again, this is based on him playing a full healthy season, regular season, this upcoming year. And I posted on over all of my social medias. And so I predict that Jack Hughes is going to get to 45 goals. I think he's absolutely capable of being a guy that can put up a huge chunk of goals on a consistent basis. We know how talented Jack Hughes is with dishing the puck and creating opportunities for other guys to score. That's why I got him getting the 50 assists. And then overall, I think he's going to end up with 95 points. Now, is that better than what his best season was a couple of years ago? No, but it just would prove the amount of talent that Jack Hughes has and the ability that he can bring to the table. So, again, overall, as we've talked about, Jack Hughes is still one of the most talented players in this league. When healthy, he is the cog of this Devils machine. And when he goes, the rest of the team goes. And if he could take on a little bit more of a leadership role, continue to, lead by example as he has before and continue to produce the way he's able to, this Devils team is going to be fine. Do they need to still add more depth scoring? Absolutely. But the overall belief, and we've seen it throughout the NHL, and a lot of analysts talking about it, is that when Jack Hughes is going and that top six is going, it's one of the best in the NHL. We've seen it before, and there's nothing saying that we won't see it again in 25-26. So I expect a big, big, big year for Jack Hughes this upcoming season. And I'm very excited to see him back on the ice. And hopefully, knock on wood, he can stay as healthy as possible and help this team make a run to getting back into the playoffs, but more importantly, making a run in the playoffs and getting back to a level that the Devils were at 2 years ago, where everybody was saying that the future is bright. This team is on the verge of being a Stanley Cup contender. And we've taken a couple of years now where we've really struggled. And now, even though we've made the playoffs last year, but now is the time to get back to that level and really make that push and really get not just to the second round, but make that push to the conference finals, make a push to the Stanley Cup finals. Like, it is the time now. You have your top guys on these great contracts. You gotta take advantage of the opportunity that you have. And Jack Hughes, I think, understands that better than anybody. And I think he's going to come in super motivated this year. So, yeah, that is my overall season recap and thoughts on Jack Hughes. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down here on YouTube. But also, let me know what you guys think over on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I also post a lot of content over on TikTok as well that I'll leave in the comment section, and also on Blue Sky, which you guys just saw where I showed my graphic from as well. Just search Neil Villapiano and you'll find it. I post a lot of the Devil's State of Mind stuff over on there as well. But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so very much for taking time out of your day to hear me go a little bit about our beloved Jack Hughes. And yeah, again, this is an important year coming up for him, an important year coming up for the New Jersey Devils, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. But thank you all so very much, and we will see you in the next episode. Everyone, continue to be the awesome people that you are. And as I always say at the end of every episode, put those horns up, baby, and let's go, Devils.